Good evening. My name is Linda Brett, and I'm the Executive Director for the Emerald Zone. I'd like to welcome you here tonight to a live talk show. It's a joint project between the Emerald Zone Corporation and the Kings Point Rattling Brook Channel TV. With me tonight I have 3 board members belonging to the Emerald Zone, and I'd like to introduce those to you now. First, we have Gerald Burton. He's the chairperson. He represents the Regional Development Association for the Bay Verte Peninsula. Good evening, Gerald. And next to Gerald, we have Maurice Budgell. Maurice is from this area. Good evening. He represents the natural resources for the whole zone. And the third person is Jim Hobbs. He's also from the Green Bay area, and he represents organized labor for the whole zone. This evening really is your evening. We're here to tell you a little bit of information about the Emerald Zone, but in essence we'd also like to hear your opinions of what's going on out there in this area with economic issues. What can we do to improve the situation? And what I will do during the show is have some questions for our panel here, but I really would like for you to call in with your questions. The lines are open, and the number is 268-2181. I'll repeat that, 268-2181. So feel free anytime for the next hour to come in and give us a question, and I will direct it to one of our panelists here. So what are the kinds of things can we talk about tonight? Well, one of the things I'd like to know is, why do you live here in Kings Point? What is special about this area, and why should people remain here? And I'm sure all the residents have answers to that, and we would like to hear from that. And in that case, why do you wish to continue here? What should the community look like 10 years from now? But just to give you a little background, and let me start asking some questions to our board members. Just a second. Hello? Hello, caller? I'm afraid we may have had a wrong number there. We'll continue on with what we have. Gerald, I'm going to ask you the first question, just to give the audience a little bit of background. What is the Emerald Zone?
Well, I guess as a result of the Task Force on Community Economic Development in February of '95, there's a new approach to community economic development.
Mm-hmm.
And we are a group of volunteers from different stakeholders throughout the region. That's the Bay Verte, Green Bay region. That looks at new ways for community economic development. So there's we have 15 board members. We're all volunteers. We have representatives from municipalities, rural development associations, education and training, municipalities, youth representative, although there's none active right now,
Mm-hmm.
Fisheries, natural resources, and representatives from all the different sectors, basically.
Okay, could you just take a minute maybe to tell us who some of those people are that sit on the board?
Well, maybe I should start with the executive.
Okay.
George Yates, municipalities from the Green Bay area. He's the vice chair of the Emerald Zone Cooperation.
Yes.
And Kevin Thistle, business,
Right.
from the Bay Verte Peninsula. He's the treasurer.
Mm-hmm.
And Jean Quigley from LaCie. She's the secretary of the board. And then we have representatives of natural resources. Morris, you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
him.
Could I just interrupt you 1 second? I think we have a newcomer
Oh,
here.
yes.
Because of the weather and that. George
Yep.
Yates, pleased to see you were able to make it. George is our vice chairperson of the Emerald Zone, and he represents municipalities for the Green Bay area, and he's quite ready to answer some questions as well. Now, sorry to interrupt you, but
Okay.
go ahead.
So what was your question?
I was asking you whom was on the board, and I think you covered the executive.
Okay. So then we have Jim from Labor is here, and well, I already mentioned George. Cynthia Matthews, she's a member at large. Joy Batstone is the Rural Development Association rep from Green Bay, and I'm the Rural Development Association rep from the Bay Vert area. We have Janet Sacre, Fisheries, Lisa Windsor, Business from Springdale. Clooney Randall is a member at large from
Yes.
Rattling Brook. Maurice, could you think of anybody I've missed?
Lady from Westport.
Pardon?
Lady from Westport.
Daphne Warren.
Oh,
is
Daphne
our
Warren,
newest,
that's right.
member,
She's
yes.
the newest member. That's right, municipalities. Anyone else? Jim, have I missed?
Okay, we apologize if we have missed somebody
Yes.
here. And I would like to extend to the public that anything, if you
Wayne
don't-
Wiseman. I'm
Wayne
sorry, Wayne
Wiseman.
Wiseman, tourism.
That's right,
Yes.
he represents tourism
Yeah.
for the whole zone as
Sure.
well. And if any time that you have a question or that you have an idea, you're quite welcome to contact any one of us. George, I know you just dropped in, but I was wondering, we were just coming to the point of what is the Emerald Zone. I was wondering maybe briefly you could tell us what its mandate is?
Mandate of the Emerald Zone.
Yes, what's the purpose of it? Why was it formed?
Okay, is it on there now, I guess?
I'm hoping, I guess they'll
Hope so.
indicate if there's,
Okay,
he's fine.
Well, I guess the Emerald Zone was formed, started to be formed back in about 3 years ago, I suppose, when the community futures organizations from around Newfoundland started to get together to come up with the idea of doing formal strategic planning for economic development in the zones, or in the different regions of Newfoundland. And then the provincial government came up with Doug House's report to divide Newfoundland up into the different regions, and of which I guess it's 19, and we're Zone 11. So there's a lot of us that got involved in this 3 or 4 years ago, and it sort of I think evolved to the point where it's to now, and it's still evolving. I think the key thing to remember in this is it's planning for our future, and it's supposed to be done by us and not by someone else. So I think the ball's in our court this time. We can't point the finger and blame it on anyone else if things don't get done. It's up to ourselves to make it happen.
Thank you. Is there anything else that the board members would like to add to that?
Linda, I believe we forgot to mention George Walsh from Fleur de Lis.
Okay.
He's the business rep in that area, see?
Okay. And in terms of the mandate of why the Emerald Zone was formulated, is there anybody that would like to add to that?
Yeah, in terms of mandate, I think George has touched on it. Prior to this board, this concept being put in place, the government has come up with make-work projects and other projects to try and stimulate economic development. That, although there are some successes, the government of the day, under then Premier Clyde Wells, came back with the Doug House shop, the Economic Development Division, and set a mandate that people would determine their own future. And that's basically where we're at right now. So the mandate of this corporation is to try and implement or develop a plan that's going to see some economic development in this area. That's the mandate.
Okay. What's the present status of the board in fulfilling this mandate? Where are you in the scheme of things? And I pass that to anyone here as an open question.
Right now, we're in the process of strategic planning, and they tell me I got to get my voice up. We're in the process of developing a strategic plan, which in the next couple of years we're hoping to implement. However, as a byproduct of the strategic plan, we have to then negotiate another performance contract with the government to come up with funding that will carry us over the next 3 years.
Okay. Is there anything else anyone would like to add? I leave that open. Someone would like to speak, just indicate so.
Linda, with regards to economic development here in Green Bay and Newfoundland in general, of course, we've been talking about this for years and years. I mean, going back back in the early or the late 60s, I suppose, early 70s, when we were trying to put together some form of a structure to try and create economic development in rural Newfoundland. But and I just want to add to a couple of things that George and Jim mentioned, it really didn't get together. Back in 1992, we had this report here, Change and Challenge, and of course that was the strategic economic plan for Newfoundland and Labrador. And in that plan, the government decided to divide the province up into 17 zones. Now, of course, we have added on 3 extra zones since then, and there are 20 zonal boards across the province now. The government decided that they wanted these economic zones, but they decided that they would implement a task force, and that was with representatives from the Federation of Mayors and Municipalities and from the Newfoundland and Labrador Rural Development Council. So they felt there was a need for further cooperation between municipalities and rural development to try and see if we could come up with a new approach to economic development. And these, there was a task force that was in 1993. I remember attending a conference at Memorial University, and it was this one here, Learning from Ourselves, the Beginning. And that's when the Federation of Mayors and Municipalities and the NRLDC, Newfoundland and Labrador Rural Development Council, got together and set the groundwork for this cooperation between the two organizations. And as a result of that conference at Memorial University, the government initiated a task force with a number of people to bring in some recommendations of what they saw for economic development in the foreseeable future. And as a result of that, of course, we got another huge document here called Community Matters. And this is, of course, the Bible that we are operating, and this is where we get our mandate with regards to the Provisional Board and with regards to now the Permanent Board. And that task force made these recommendations, which is herein contained, and it's from here, of course, is where we get our mandate of what we're supposed to do. That's basically the history of zonal boards, the zonal board process in this province.
Okay, so there's been some criticism in the past when these regional economic development boards were created, and some people have argued that really they are here to wipe out the regional development associations. Is this true, or what reaction would you have to that, Maurice?
Yes, well, that is the furthest thing from the truth. Although with regards to the Regional Development Association, Green Bay Economic Development Association, and the Bayvert Peninsula Development Association in particular, I know they're going through rough times because as a result of these zonal boards, the funding for these two organizations, the operational funding was cut. I understand. That's true. I mean, they lost.
That's true.
And you must remember, they were receiving $30,000 approximately. $36,500 per year as an operational grant to keep these organizations going. When the provisional board and now the permanent board of these zonal boards came into being, and it's a complicated thing, but I mean that funding was cut, and it's channeled now into this new zonal board. And that, of course, is what caused the friction between the development associations and the zonal boards. But you must remember, we have to go back to the point I made earlier, and that is that this is a cooperation. It was the parent body of the regional development associations that got together with the Federation of Mayors and Municipalities, these two groups, to take a look at economic development. So there's not the zonal boards sort of moving in our rural development associations. It was a task force that was set up and brought in recommendations that this is the new way, the new approach to regional economic development. And we are only just part of it. It's supposed to be the new approach. Now, whether or not it's able to perform its mandate, only time will tell, of course, but this is the new approach, as I said.
Okay, I guess, Gerald, I'd like for you, would you like to make a comment on this? Because I know that you've been involved with both process and still are. Is there something that you'd like to add, or?
Well, with regards to development associations, it is not the intent of government to get rid of development associations as such. If they can become part of the future development of the zone, then they will receive money from projects, administrative funding from specific projects that they do. It is just more difficult for them to operate in the future than what it was in the past, because in the past you were just given money anyway and you just operated. But in the future, the only money you will receive will be a percentage of any major initiative that you take on. Like, for example, if you do a silviculture program, 5% of that program is for administrative purposes.
So there is still a place for the Region Development Associations, and they still, as a grassroots organizations, we need them in our communities.
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Okay. I'm going to move on. You talked about strategic planning, and we referred to the first step of strategic planning is vision. And I know during our public consultation meetings, we talked about that fairly extensively. Also, we would like for the people here to call in and tell us what they think their community should look like. And again, I'll repeat the number. It's 268-2181. So please call in. But Gerald, I'm going to pass this one also on to you. When they're talking about vision, what is a vision, and what are the kinds of things that people were saying at the community level? What do they want to see to remain in their community?
Well, to answer your question, what is a vision? You know, it's just a couple of weeks ago I put an article in the paper with regards to vision. In my mind, vision is it's a mental picture, a clear mental picture of a preferable future, how we really want it to be in the future. Now, we haven't really developed our vision statement as such, and you know we are about to do that. We are in that process, and as a result of the kind of things that the people value in their communities and their society today, that's what our vision statement will be based on. I believe that everything must take place in our minds first. We must have a mental picture of what it is we want to do before we actually go out and make that a reality in our lives or in our society. So I know one thing that people value a real lot, and that is the right to continue to live in a small community or a rural community. And we want to make sure that the structure of those communities stay in place so that people can continue to live there. There have been major cutbacks with regards to municipal funding and there's a squeeze on the small communities.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you now. Hello, caller?
Yes, I was wondering, do you foresee anything in the manufacturing of goods for the Green Bay area in the next several years?
Okay, I think I'm going to pass that one to George. You didn't have anyone particular that you wanted to answer that?
No, just anyone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
George, if you could answer that for us.
Well, I think that if we're going to have a bright future, that manufacturing is going to have to play a very important role in that. I think the key to manufacturing is it brings new dollars into the area rather than just recycling the ones that are here. And I think there's several examples of manufacturing companies within our region that are bringing new dollars into the area, like Green Bay Fiber Products, not too far away. And I think there's a lot of opportunities in manufacturing in our area, especially with secondary processing of agricultural foods, for example, and probably some of the forest products. People have tried some manufacturing in those areas, but I think manufacturing also lets us export to the rest of the province, but more importantly, if we can find markets for it outside the province in the rest of Canada or on the world market, I think there lies our future.
Okay, caller, is there anything else that you'd like to ask?
No, thank you.
Caller, before you leave, is there anything in manufacturing that you think that we should be involved with?
Well, maybe into the sealing industry and the fishery part of it.
Yes?
Maybe into food processing or along that line. I don't know if there's anything in that line that's on the go.
Okay, we'll take note of that. And if there's anything anybody else would like to add, be sure to tell us, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for calling.
Bye.
Linda, possibly I could add a comment to the caller's question. To me, that's going to be the key to our economic future, George and Mr. Caller, here in the Green Bay area. As you know, of course, with regards to the woods industry, the trees are getting fewer and fewer, and you know that that area is not going to supply employment for the people in Green Bay and also on the Bay Verte Peninsula, because this Zone 11 covers both Green Bay and Bay Verte. And therefore we have to look very, very seriously at manufactured goods. And the thing I just wanted to make a point with regards to the woods industry, we have 3 very, very large paper mills in Newfoundland that are using any number of manufactured products. And yet here in this province and in this area in particular, we make precious nil that's supplying. I mean, all of these things, the same thing with the fishing industry. I mean, they use knives to cut the fish. All of the gear, the nets and the buoys and the engines and everything that's used in these long liners and associated with the fishing industry, every one of these items is made somewhere else. And we just, as a committee and as a zonal board, we just have to zero in on these things and see where we can create a little niche to make some of these products.
Maybe I could share
Sure,
some
ahead.
information with regards to manufacturing. With regards to the food industry, there is an initiative now on the Bay Verte Peninsula utilizing seal meat as a food product that could be exported. But to think about a new product, there's a gentleman in Burlington that melted down some white plastic tubs and sort of grind up some newspaper and mixed it together, and under extreme pressure made a type of building material. And he brought me a sample of it and demonstrated the strength of that material. It could be sawed, it could be nailed, you could put screws in it and take them out again, and it was as strong as any aspenite that I've ever seen. But just simply plastic, newspaper, and under extreme pressure it bonded together without the glue being in.
Sounds excellent. Besides bringing this product to you, is he planning to try to export or develop this further?
Well, I encouraged him to take the product to, other groups to test it.
Sure. Well, let's hope that this works out quite successfully for him. And we would encourage anybody in this region to try new, innovative things similar to that. I'm going to switch it a little bit. George, I'm going to pass it back to you. You've attended a fair number of the public meetings in business municipalities. What kinds of issues were discussed at these meetings? What are the concerns in the zone for business people and for townships?
Well, I think the main concerns that came up from all our meetings, and a concern that I have personally, and I think most of the members on the board is, just what are the problems that existing businesses are facing, and why they are not growing or why they are not expanding. And that was a pretty common theme throughout the meetings. We're trying to find out a feel for just how government is serving the needs of small business. Small business is supposed to be the backbone of the economy, and certainly the place where there's going to be growth in the job markets in the future. And It'd be interesting if some people could call in and relate some of your experiences you've had dealing with government, lending institutions and whatnot, to see if your needs are being fulfilled, because this is going to be a very crucial part of our report. And if your needs are being fulfilled, well, we need to say that. But if there needs to be some constructive changes, some constructive criticism, we'd like to hear that as well. So I guess that covers that off, Linda.
Yeah. Is there anything that another board member would like to add to that? Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to, and I was going to tell you to do that, with regards to the consultation process, and maybe you should just tell the viewing audience exactly what we've been doing in the last month and a half with regards to these consultation process.
Okay. All these different areas that are being represented that Gerald spoke about, what we did was form 3 clusters. And 3 clusters represented natural resources and labor. They represent the municipalities, business, the Regional Development Association, the Community Futures Business Corporation, and the last one was education, youth, and at large. And we set up meetings throughout the zone. In some cases there were 4 meetings in Lassie, Bayvert, Springdale, and Triton. And depending on whether there was a heavy say an infrastructure or a focus, we would have the meeting in that community. For example, we had agriculture here in Kings Point. At these meetings, we went and asked people as to what they thought, like I mentioned at the beginning. What is their future? What is the present state? How do we get from here to there? Also, to identify the weaknesses and the strengths, some of the external opportunities, and some of the external threats. And from that, we're trying to identify some strategies that we can build on. And I guess, as was mentioned earlier in this meeting, that it's not what we, the Emerald Zone, can do, because you're just a board of 15 people. It's what the people of the Emerald Zone can do for themselves. And what we can do is help that process along to a greater extent. For instance, if there was a group that wished to follow an initiative, maybe we can give them some addresses. Maybe we can sit down and work with somebody in a new plan. But in essence, it is really the people organizing their own action groups, getting out there, forming their own chamber of commerce, finding out the issues that are meaningful to them, and doing something about it. So that's what we're in the process of doing. And now that we've got this information, we've had 13 meetings, and now we've got some comments. We're looking to go on. So, now in terms of the natural resources though, Maurice, we had several meetings in that area. We had them in mining, agriculture, aquaculture, forestry, and fishery. Could you give us a brief summary of some of the conclusions or comments or discussions or issues that you thought came out in there?
Well, we had the agriculture meeting here in Kings Point at the Fire Hall. Now,
That's correct. Okay, if you could hold on that thought, Maurice, please. Caller, yes.
Good afternoon.
Yes?
I have three lots of information I'd like to pass along here. First of all, I'd like to talk to Mr. Maurice Budgell.
Okay, he's right here beside you. He can hear you.
He's in charge of natural resources, and my personal opinion in our area of Kings Point, personally, is that Kings Point is usually based on natural resources like our forestry, little bit of fishery, and that's about it as of right now. But with our mining potential in the area, I was wondering what the Emerald Zone was doing to get up-to-date information on this mining thing for the zone and related to the Bayvert Peninsula. Seems like a lot of companies got a big interest in the Bayvert Peninsula regard to mining, because what's happening is that there's a lot of exploration companies coming in there, and you don't see too many coming in the Green Bay area like Springdale, Kings Point area, where all this mining is taking place, and we was wondering why this is so.
Okay, Maurice, what's your response to...
Well, I'll just change from the agriculture that I was commenting on a few minutes ago. I'll go into the mining sector, and that's the area that we covered in Bayvert, and there were a few people from the mining sector that attended our meeting. And let me assure the caller that everything possible that we can do is being done to track down companies that's interested in doing exploration work here in the area, and also with regards to mineral development and the activation of mines. Of course, with regards to the Bayvert Peninsula, as he just mentioned, we have the Nugget Pond and now, of course, Pine Cove, and it seems like there's just a flurry of activity. But now you must realize that some of this activity is due to an organization, a mining organization in Bayvert that's really promoting mineral exploration, mineral development on that peninsula. And they do have that mining conference every spring, and I can assure you that's really promoting that area down there. But other than that, with regards to here in Kings Point, we are tracking down as far as we can exactly what Major General is doing here on the Randall Jackman property and also up here on the top of the ridge. So your question is very well taken, and we're pursuing these to see what exactly can happen in the mining sector. It's just a matter of contacting those people.
Yes.
No, the reason for my question is, since our provincial government has split our district of Green Bay and brought us in with the Bayvert Peninsula, why ain't we representative in this organization that he just mentioned more, because and get more publicity out on this and let people know in this area what's taking place. It seems like to me in the media and in the newspaper, it's more brought out for the Bayvert Peninsula than it is us. And as of the last provincial election, we're part of this district right now, and the Emerald Zone takes in us too, plus down there. But it seems like the people in this area is on hot bricks, like they wants to know what's taking place there. And the only bit of information they're getting is in this little article every new moon you get in the newspaper. And and that's why I asked this question.
Yeah, well, I just reiterate what I just said, and you would have to attend, and I'm sure that Gerald Burton here would testify to that fact. You would have to attend one of those mining conferences just to appreciate the drive, the publicity, the initiative that's going into the mining sector on the Bayvert Peninsula. Now, you must remember, Mr. Caller, that they do have a couple of active mines on the Bayvert Peninsula, namely, of course, Ming Minerals and Ramo is processing gold there now, and also the Nugget Pond. So associated with these three operations, there could be some 30 or 40 people, geologists, mineral explorationists, and that type of thing that's living there on the site, and naturally they're doing what they can to try and promote their area. But that's where we are terribly lacking. I have to agree with you.
And one of my other questions is concerning the forestry. As you know, you've been involved with the forestry yourself, and in this area, the forestry is getting quite cut to its limit. And because what's happening is that in the Kitchens Valley, for instance, and the Chopin Valley, there have never been much planting trees, this type of thing in there, and it's growing up naturally a little bit at a time, but I can't see a forlorn future in the forestry here in this area without somebody interceding and getting a massive planting of trees or thinning out the trees that's there, because what's happening is that it's getting cut to its limit, and it's somebody's going to have to step in and say, listen here, we want some massive tree planting or something for the future. If not, there's not going to be any forestry left in Kings Point in the next 10 years. There's not going to be anything here. And with regards to the fishery, it's limited. The most fishermen here, they leave and go down the bay and stay down that way, you well know. And but the farming sector has a major issue in this area, and it really concerned me because a lot of farmers in this area, they seem to tend to the same type of vegetable type thing. And here we are importing things like onions from Quebec, for instance, and which is a major thing. Everybody uses onions. And if somebody in your Emerald Zone committee could recommend to these people to turn to these type of things, it would probably produce a new sector in the farming thing, in that area.
Okay, Mr. Caller, I think we can have to talk about one issue at a time here. Before we go on to the forestry, did any of the board members want something to say about the mining sector? Gerald?
Mr.
Yes.
Caller, I'd just like to share a comment with regards to the mining sector. A lot of the activity that's now going on the Bay Verde Peninsula was initiated before there was an Emerald Zone cooperation. The Bay Verde and Area Chamber of Commerce has been very strong sponsors of the mining conference in Bay Verde, Maurice, and a lot of what we see now happened before there was an Emerald Zone. But I believe that in the future, the Green Bay area will be certainly included in the activity that's going on. And it may be possible that we can change the location of the mining conferences from time to time as an Emerald Zone. Encourage the conferences to be, let's say, in Springdale one year, Bay Verde another year, now that we're all as one. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Caller, we'll be discussing some of these other issues as the program goes on. Thank you very much for calling in.
Thank you.
One of the things that he was talking about in the mining that came out during the public consultation was that right now in the Bay Verde Peninsula, yes, there's golds being produced, but they only forecast that for a limited period of time. And what some of the members that attended the meeting there that night said was, if we don't get involved with mineral exploration now, what's going to happen to the future? And so they suggested not only for the Bay Verde Peninsula, but for Green Bay, that we should have a tremendous, much more mineral exploration, because obviously you can't have mining if you can't find the product out there. Any comment to that?
Just one comment. I think a few years ago, when the flow-through funding was available through the federal government, there was quite a flurry of activity in this area. Hence, we got the properties there on top of Kings Point Ridge. I think one of the things that came out of that was to try a pilot project within the Emerald Zone, whether we could have any success or not, would be a pilot project to initiate again some flow-through funding for companies within this area, or some aspect of that. There are initiatives that we can pursue and things that we will be lobbying to get from the powers that be in order to increase the exploration. We can only find minerals if we look for them, so we will be pursuing on that avenue.
Okay. Jim, while you're talking there, I think I'm going to catch you on another area, which is you represent organized labor. What's organized labor's point of being involved with this whole process with the Regional Economic Development Group?
Organized labor has been involved with this concept almost from the beginning. We have made our views known to government when the Community Matters Task Force was on the go, that we thought this was a good process. It operates from the bottom up, not being dictated from what's commonly called the top down. Organized labor do support people determining their own destiny, and we have been involved and we will continue to be involved as long as this process is done in the way in which it is now being carried out. One other thing we're looking for, and came out of several conferences, is the building of partnerships. I think we're seeing not only a change in the thought of labor, but also in the thought of business and thought of government, in that we have to develop partners with business, with government, to determine where do we go. I mean, labor has got to feel some ownership of the jobs that they have. If we lose one more business out of this province, and not only do the entrepreneur, the investor lose, but our members also lose their jobs. So the partnership is in that aspect.
Excuse me. Yes, caller.
Hello?
What's on your mind tonight?
Yes, well, I have no reason to not to identify myself. My name is Carl Wright, and I'm living here in Kings Point. There are a few comments that I'd like to make regarding the topics that are here tonight.
Please do so.
My involvement in development matters can go back to the Smallwood era when they began the resettlement program. At the time I lived in Nippers Harbor. I was a member of a committee that encompassed the Bay Verde, Green Bay area when these were districts unto themselves.
Arthur Toms was a field worker at that time, living in Lassie, and quite a lot of discussion and looking forward to the future for the area went into a lot of meetings. I have, like I said, watched the rise and fall of a lot of ideas as far as development for the area is concerned, of which I am deeply concerned. I want to go back first to the question that you raised when you opened your program, and you said, why are we here? And why do we want to be here?
Well, Carl, that's the fundamental thing, really, isn't
Right.
it?
Okay. So I'd like to make some comments along those lines if I have the time.
Appreciate that.
Anything that I want to say is not said in a derogatory manner. I just want to make some quotes.
Okay. Carl, if you could be as brief as possible, because we want
That's
to get...
okay. Well, I'd like to consider myself as looking. I look at development associations as a type of government, which I think that in actual form that it is. And I wonder what our public around the island see when they look at Newfoundland politics, as it were, through the eyes of a layman. And I'm sure that there are a lot of pros and cons and things that we see there. I once worked with one of the most successful Newfoundland businessmen in Newfoundland, and his interpretation of politics or politicians in Newfoundland were those who had failed at everything else that they'd done. Now, I don't say that in a derogatory manner to the Emerald Zone Board, don't get me wrong, but I think of that in the term that sometimes that there are reasons why that we have failed along in our desire to try to improve our lot. And some of the things that I see here, and some of the things I think that committees like the Emerald Zone will have to be very careful of in your planning for what communities are going to exist in the future, is that there doesn't come a competition between communities within the zone. Now, that's something that I've noticed quite noticeably throughout, that when a project in a particular association or zone begins to develop, then we see one community pitting against the other. And that's the beginning of the end for that particular project.
Carl, if I could interject there, I think that's been recognized by all the board members. And in fact, very early on, when we were a provisional board, it was discussions about one community versus another community. And in essence, I think that the board members, and I think they can back me here or disagree, whatever, I think what we've realized at this point is that there's very few dollars for development in the future, and that if we're going to make it, we're going to have to make it together, which means cooperation. I don't know if any of the other board members saw this coming out in any of the meetings?
Well, what I would like to say, friends, is this, is that we are going to see the demise of some communities, and that's not going to be anything that we are going to be able to control. Circumstances through life over the years will dictate whether or not communities will exist or continue to exist or not. And I think that what you've got to do, or what we've got to do, I should say, are to identify projects that, in the opinion of the majority of the boards of a particular zone, the ones that are feasible, whether it's agriculture for a given area, or whether it's mineralization or mineralization exploration for a given area, identify what the item is, and then identify the communities that are best able to produce that product. It's not much point in putting a fish plant out on Cape John Gull Island, if you get what I mean. That's the gist of what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Is that we cannot afford to be fighting among ourselves or looking for popularity, if that's it, or place popularity or superiority. We have to try to identify what's available and where the best place is. And we're here because the majority of people were born and reared here. They spent every existing dollar that they had, and they built their surroundings in homes or other things like trucking and whatever. And of course, that's the reason why they're here, and they'll only leave it if they're what we might call frozen out. Now, I've got an old list here. I could go on all night and I could elaborate, but I know what the situation is, and as I said, I watched the rise and fall of a lot of ideas as far as development. I wish the community and the board every success.
Thank you. Carol,
but we've got to identify and try to apply it to that particular area.
Carol,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think your comments are dead on, and I think that they're well appreciated by the board. Is there any member that would like to make a comment before we say goodbye to you?
Yeah, just one comment. That's why there's so many representatives on the board of various stakeholders, various organizations. This is a cooperative effort. We are hoping to avoid competition between communities in the future, and cooperation and partnership is what we are allowed to talk about on our board.
Yes, I think so. Right from the beginning, and it's been nearly 2 years now that we've been in some form or other. Callers out there, I'd like to remind you that the number is 268-2181. And we're going to totally change from the natural resources for a minute to talk about maybe tourism. In many of the meetings, that was considered the bright spot. What should we develop to get tourists to come into our area? That's your outside dollar, your generation of new dollars. And I guess what I'm going to ask the general audience out there is, what type of tourism do you think should occur here? Are you looking for the water slide theme kind of park? Would you like the Trinity historical cultural affairs? How about conferences and trade shows? Well, we're looking for some direction as to what you're looking at. Maybe something like a snowmobile tracking or trails that's similar to New Brunswick. But anyway, please call in and give us some indications of how tourism should be developed in this area. Does anybody have any comments on that one?
Not exactly on tourism, but to get back to the labor involvement.
Okay.
Just a point of interest, this past year, last 15 months, there's been a cooperative effort between labor and the Employers' Council in this province to come up with a new labor relations framework, more the proper labor legislation, to try and find avenues of settling disputes without having to go to the strike, lockout, the confrontation. That report has now been made to government. It was signed on by all parties, and if implemented in total, as the document goes in, would create a new labor relations framework in this province that I think everybody can live with. And that legislation itself would generate economic activity, giving Newfoundland as a place to do business from outside investment.
Okay. Do you want to add to that, George?
Okay, well, I guess just to change a little bit from what Jim was talking about and to get back about our topic about tourism, I think that our region has all kinds of potential for business development and tourism in the future. And I don't think that we need or we even want a Walt Disney World kind of a place. We have lots of things in our area that are very unique in the world. Very beautiful country, very beautiful terrain, beautiful ocean, and stuff that people cannot find basically anywhere else in the world. So the other thing, it's very difficult to make money, to make a successful business, just being in business for a couple months of the year, in a seasonal type business. But I think there's basically potential in Newfoundland, or in the Emerald Zone area, in the Zone 11 region, for at least 3 of the 4 seasons for tourism. There's all kinds of potential here in the summertime with regards to not necessarily boat tours. There's lots of boat tours around Newfoundland now. But I think if we're going to be successful, we got to be different and unique, and we have lots of things here to show people. And then there's the hunting, the different hunting areas that we've got that could be utilized in the fall, and vast areas of some of the best snowmobiling in the world for the winter. So I think there's all kinds of potential there, and it can service the needs of more than one business. One business person or one group could not develop this to its fullest potential. So I think, again, partnering is going to have to come into play, and more than one group or individual can get together and develop a package that could be sold internationally, I think.
Any other comments?
Linda, with regards to tourism and many other projects that people in this area might have, or sort of coming up with the ideas, one of the greatest stumbling blocks of all is the lack of financing, is the lack of money into the system. And that's an area that has bothered me for quite some time. And you can come up with all of the ideas that you can possibly come up with, but if you don't have a source of financing for these projects, they just won't get off the ground. And we were attending a meeting in Springdale some weeks ago, and the comment that was made there, and this was from a very successful businessman in Springdale, and he said that one of the most negative things that he finds in his business career is the condescending attitude that the bank managers in Springdale have towards him looking for financing. Now, we have to, in some way, in this area, come up with a financial scheme, a financial regime. You could call it anything you want. But people, you must remember, here in Newfoundland in particular, we are investing some $160 million in lotto tickets. We as a citizens of Newfoundland are investing $160 million in lotto tickets, and yet we cannot come up with the money to finance the project in tourism or in agriculture processing or in mining that's required to give a person in Kings Point a few days' work or a year's work. And that seems strange that we cannot. We're investing with regards to other areas. I mean, the investor syndicate representatives are here in this area almost on a continuous basis looking for their monies, looking for insurance, for mutual funds, etc., etc. We're investing money, deposits in the bank. There's all kinds of money that's circulating around, but none of this money can find its way into the development of industries that's going to employ people. And that's for the Emerald Zone, and that's my area of concern, is that we have to come up with some means whereby the person that got $5,000 in the bank and he's not using it, that we will guarantee him some security on that $5,000 so that he would put it into some sort of a community trust fund, whereby now the provincial government is going to match that dollar for dollar. So for $5,000 he's willing to invest in a project, $5,000 from the government through this community development fund, that's $10,000, and if we had 10 such people that's willing to invest $5,000 each in a particular, we got $100,000. And that's how the small entrepreneurs are going to develop again in this area. There's no other way. With George, you know that in the business that you're in, that we have, and to get money from the chartered banks in Springdale or Grand Falls for small venture projects, you're not able to do it. They just got to have, if you borrow $100,000, you have to have $100,000 worth of cash there in the bank in order to borrow that type of thing. And we have to come up with and that's one of the main projects or things that the Emerald Zone has to do, is to look for some financing for these small business projects.
Any other comments?
Linda, I'd just like to share a comment with regards to tourism.
Sure.
Now, I know the people in Kings Point, Rattling Brook area are more interested in what's going on in their immediate area. But now that we're all in one zone, the Emerald Zone, Bay Vert, Green Bay, I would just like to share what is happening in Bay Vert. We have a tourism association, and we are trying to partner now with groups in the Green Bay area so that we can put together a tourism development plan for the whole zone rather than just for the Bay Vert area. And some of the initiatives in Bay Vert that we're following, well, we already have a miner's museum with an underground tunnel, and there's simulated sound mining activity as you go through and so on. And then there's the Dorset Eskimo carvings at Fleur-de-Lis. That's going to be developed into a major tourist attraction. So hopefully with what happens on the Bay Verde Peninsula, well, there'll be a flow over into the Green Bay area, and that I think there is a good future for tourism in the Emerald Zone.
Well, that sounds exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing a much more developed tourist industry than exists now. We seem to be down to a countdown. I did want to get back to Jim with some of the fishery questions there, and there's many more issues. I would like for Maurice to have expanded on the agriculture. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of them if they'd like to spend 2 minutes and talk on whatever topic they'd like, or just as a concluding thank you. Gerald, would you like to start and we'll go across?
Well, with regards to agriculture and forestry, I think we definitely need more silviculture programs and maybe some actual replanting of seedlings, reforestation. With regards to agriculture, I believe that Green Bay area is the area that should be expanded. I think we should even get into the bottling or canning of maybe just one vegetable. For example, like canned carrot or bottled carrot, maybe marinated carrot. Vegetables should be canned, should be supplied to the general public and exported, that kind of thing.
Well, I know that I have tasted some bottling from this area through the local craft and trade fair. Excellent product. I really highly recommend it, and I'm sure they could be producing a greater variety. Maurice, do you have a few last comments?
Well, I just want to say that my thrust with regards to the Emerald Zone, and I just elaborated on one of them, is with regards to some sort of method whereby small business can be financed. In addition to that, this area, the Emerald Zone, is losing its young people. And the young people that we're losing are the very, very best that we have. They're very well educated, and a lot of these kids are going to university. They're graduating in all kinds of disciplines with regards to science and technologies of all descriptions. And we have to make a special effort that they know that they are welcome back into this zone. And we have to set up the mechanism whereby the financing is arranged, and we also have the infrastructure that will help these kids to come back, those bright, educated Green Bayers and Bay Verters, to come back into this area with their technology and their business plans and set up a business in this area. And that's the key. We need the financing, and we need the young people that's going to put these business ventures together, and we will have success and job creation in this area.
And we definitely would like to see that. The out-migration, we never even had an opportunity here tonight to talk about youth, and that is one of our serious concerns. Jim, I'll let you continue.
Yeah, just to clue up, I'm a firm believer that we do have a future in this part of this beautiful province. I think that it's only through cooperation that we're going to attain it. I don't think that fighting among ourselves or having conflict among communities will succeed now. I think through cooperation, through a will to do it, and just getting out there and working for something. I think we have to go that way. That's why I'm involved with this process in any case. I don't know if anybody's with an idea that you'd like to see pursued, some business venture. I think we can be of help. I think we can find the right directions for you to go in. So with that, thank you for listening.
Okay, George, I'll give you for the last comment for the night.
Yeah, well, I guess a couple of things I'd like to wind up with. First of all, I think that we've got to realize that we can't be everything to everybody, and there's a big world market out there, basically in the rest of our province and outside in the rest of our country and even outside. And there's some very unique skills in that we have in this area that if we could develop a niche to put out a top quality product, we could be very successful. And one such person that's been successful in this over the last few years, and I'm sure has a bright future, and it's the Kings Point pottery operation here in Kings Point. and they're doing a top quality product with all kinds of potential across the country. And so I'd like to commend Linda Yates for having the initiative to take that from a little seed and making it grow. Also, I think Springdale being a service center for this side of the region very much realizes just how important our brother and sister communities are. And so I think that the days of fighting amongst communities are basically realistically over. I think that in the entire zone that it's very much realized that that there has always been in the past a lot of initiative for a small community in the Kings Point, Rattling Brook area. And so hopefully with our past and the top quality people that are here, several people from Kings Point work in our firm, and those people are second to none to anybody in the province. So I'm sure we've got a bright future, but the key is that we got to believe in ourselves and sell ourselves to the rest of the world, and we'll do it together. So I'm looking forward to the next few years. Emerald Zone, or the Green Bay, certainly has taken a lot of knocks recently, but I think we've bottomed out, and I think it's upward and onward from here. Thank you.
Thank you, George, for your comments. And I think you're very spot on with that. I think we do have a bright future, and we need to move on, and we need to take the initiative and be together, working together. I'd like to thank you, the viewer, for being with us tonight. Also, I'd like to thank the Kings Point and Rattling Brook Community Channel TV. This is a first for us, but we really enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll be able to do it here and then with other communities. We say good luck, and possibly see you another time.
Good night.
Good night.
All right.